Okay, welcome back to the short video series. Here comes number 3 of financial freedom. Brief disclaimer again. Alright, lesson 3, assets versus liabilities. So, you're making money now. We've talked about earning. We've talked about budget. We know where your money's going, how much of it you're spending, and on what. So now, you've got excess money. What are you going to do with it? Okay, that's what this whole show, or this whole particular episode is going to be about. So, asset versus liability. Most of this I got from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the book. Great book, highly recommended if you look at videos about him, Robert Kiyosaki, or you get to read the book. But 3 things we're going to talk about today is defining the difference between asset and liability, categorize common items that people think of, and introduce the idea of mastering our money. So, asset versus liability. Got 2 pictures here. Obviously, one is showing your money growing. As we look through, I bolded a couple parts of this. It's generating cash flow. It's reducing your expenses. It's something that you own with the expectation of it providing benefit to you. Okay? If we look over at liability, you owe something for it. It's increasing your costs or your expenses. It's typically in the form of a loan, things that you owe people, mortgages, bonds, which is a form of a loan. Okay, those are all liabilities. So they're taking money away from you. So as you begin to think about what am I going to use my excess money for, the question starts to become, am I going to use my excess money to have my money start generating money for me? Or am I going to buy things that are going to take more money from me? Is my money working for me? Or am I working for my money in hopes of having to continue to work for my money for 10, 20, 30 years? This is the question that we're talking about, and it's a question that you seriously need to consider, because if you aren't taking this into account, what you're doing is you are putting that ball and chain on yourself like you see here in this picture. And my goal for you in the whole series is to be financially free, meaning free to make the choices, do what you want to do, have fun, enjoy your life, do things that you like to do, be able to pay for them, right? And if you just go along with what everyone else is doing, that may not be the situation that you find yourself in. So that's the goal. We're defining asset versus liability. So with that being said, let's take a look at some common things people typically own. Okay, so you got an iPhone. Is that an asset or a liability? Well, it's a liability. You're paying on it on a monthly basis, right? A boat. Drive by the boat rental area on the way to school every day. Good looking boats. Asset or liability? Are you getting money from it, or are you using money constantly? Is it taking money from you? Insurance, costs, payments. It's a liability, okay? Home theater system. We all need one of those, right? Liability. You're probably going to get payments on that instead of even pay for the whole thing for many instances. And then finally, the most controversial one. Your biggest asset, your biggest piece of equity in this life is a house. Well, you guys may already be familiar with how house financing works, but in most instances, people get a 30-year loan on a house, and they have insurance on the house, various payments and things come up with a house, and it's typically the biggest expense in most people's lives. And in that instance, is it taking money from you, or is it giving money to you on a monthly or annual basis? It's taking money from you. And that's the car as well. If you're looking at a car, is that equity? Is that something that's generating? Is that an asset, or is that a liability? Well, it's a liability. Okay? All those are liabilities. They're all taking money from you. Is there an argument to be made for at the conclusion of you selling a house that you could make money? That's possible, but that's speculation. And if you're buying a house with the intent of making money, well, I put that at the top middle picture. That would be my little example of like a rent house. So if you buy a house with the intent of renting it out and knowing that you're going to likely be able to get more money in rent money than you are in home payments and all the different various costs that come up to own a house, well then now that house is generating income for you, which would put it into the asset category. Okay. So finally, top right, my favorite, and we'll have multiple episodes exclusively dedicated to this: stocks, or things that you can invest in on your computer where you don't have to show up anywhere. Okay. We'll have a whole episode dedicated, multiple episodes dedicated to investing, and that's going to be my favorite. But for this episode, I just want you to get in the frame of thought of categorizing, going, okay, this is my extra money. What is it going to get used for? Something that's going to generate more money for me so that I don't have to keep working forever, or something that's going to take more money from me forever, and I've just got to keep working because I need all this stuff and they've got this stuff, so I need this stuff. Liabilities, okay? That's what keeps people in what we call the rat race, running the pinwheel for the remainder of life. And if you talk to many adults, it's an embarrassing thing, but it's the truth. It's the circumstance of the majority of adults in the United States. And I think that's the goal of the show, is to educate you on your options and things available to you so that you can consciously make those choices and you can go, okay, I want this, and I'm willing to bear all that comes with this beautiful home that I needed. Okay, so talked a little bit about the master of your money concept just now. Got a little quote here: the borrower is the servant to the lender. That's a classic biblical quote. Couple questions posed by Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad, and this is where I got a lot of this from. Do you want to work for money, or do you want money to work for you? What does that mean? Well, once you can get money working for you, meaning money is generating some form of income, let's say $100 is generating 5%. So each year, 5% is being generated just from your $100 being in something. Well, now you have $105 and you're putting more money in, and that's generating more. On 5 on 100 doesn't sound like a lot, but 5 on 100,000, well, that's 5,000. 5 on 500,000, well, that's 25,000. 5 on a million, well, that's 50,000, right? That's what a lot of people make in a year. So as you continue to work towards that, and the more efficient and better you become, let's say you're making 10% on 100,000. Well, now you're making 10,000, right? And those numbers may sound far-fetched to you right now, but as you get older, those numbers won't sound as big. And as you get going and investing and thinking about how am I using my money and my time and my effort and energy, you will start to hopefully think about, okay, is this an asset or a liability? Am I going to use my money to make my life easier financially, or to make my life harder financially? Okay. The better decisions you make, the more assets you have, and the more your money's working for you, and you don't have to work as hard. And I don't know if you want to work harder than you have to, but I personally prefer to be able to have the freedom to choose how am I going to apply my time and my energy. And that's the goal. So, to rehash, hopefully you kind of have an idea now the difference between an asset and a liability by how we defined it today, which we got from Investopedia.com. Categorize some of these items. Think about in your future, what does being free and liberated from financial burden really look like? Does it look like having a huge house that you don't need with payments and cars and all these boats and all these? That's up to you to define. But as you get closer to that, be aware of the financial obligations that are coming with that. So you're categorizing those items, and you start thinking about, what does it look like to be the master of my money rather than my money being the master of me and making me work for it for the finite or infinite future. Okay? Assets versus liabilities, episode 3. We're about to get into the exciting stuff next. Have a good day. Bye.